7 after 8 o'clock, and I think we are trying to connect up with Lukhona Mnguni. We are going to be talking about the upcoming local elections, and I think it's beginning to heat up. Lots of parties are, preparing and prepping their candidates for this position. The mayoral candidate, we also know that the DA is forging full ahead with Helen Zille. And I kind of wonder what the other parties are going to come up with. And does it also mean that the ANC is not going to win this time around and place, and their candidate get a seat at the table? Very interesting times indeed. And let's check if have we got our guest on air. And let's get this interview on the road. 8:08 exactly. Lukhona, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
A very good morning to you and a good morning to your listeners.
And many congratulations. I see that you are Rise Mzansi, Johannesburg's mayoral candidate. And of course, you are also a former political analyst. And when I saw this, I kind of said to myself, him having come from a space of analyzing the political scene, not only in South Africa, but global politics, would be, perhaps the person to look out for, because he understands politics the way it plays out. So, and with other candidates, that's not necessarily true. So I feel hopeful, with your name having been thrown in the hat. Let's ask you, how did this all come about, and how are you feeling right now about being the possible mayoral candidate for us here in Johannesburg?
Well, thanks a lot. Of course, no easy decision because the political scene in South Africa is such that if you cross over generally to the other side, you tend to self-blacklist, or, some people call it career suicide. But I have always considered myself to be an activist, to be an active citizen of the country, and at all times contribute however I believe is the best way in that particular moment, and that has encompassed a number of things over the last 15 years, 16 years, which is really whether it is to make submissions to commissions, submissions to parliament on legislation, report people to the Human Rights Commission, the public protector, and so on, as part of the broader framework of work of an active citizen. It's not just to analyze of course, that probably formed about 20%, 25% of my life. Worked in broadcasting and in civil society, particularly to advance this idea of good governance. And so I think that's how it came about. So when the opportunity presented itself that I could throw my name in the ring and be considered as a mayoral candidate for Rise Mzansi, I then took up that task because the last time I was involved in politics was probably 2011, when I left the Congress of the People. We were young university stars then, when COPE was formed in 2009, right, ahead of that election. And we participated again because we thought it's important to be active in arresting the decline of, a country, and putting up a number of parliamentarians who would then debate issues quite seriously, and not be drowned down with what was a clear political decline at that time. So one has been in the space, and one has tried to contribute to the country, and I think this is another way to say, we cannot analyze our country to its death. We've got to do something and roll up our sleeves, and I think or, we are still blessed with energy, with ideas, and with integrity, and that's what we need to pursue.
It is exactly 8:21 a.m. We are talking with Rise Mzansi's mayoral candidate and former political analyst, and that, of course, is you, Lukhona Mnguni. I left you with a question just before the ad break. Would you like to respond to that? And then lots more questions coming your way this morning. Thank you for being with us.
No. Thanks a lot for that question.
Okay.
You talk about the idea of civic pride with just residents of the city. And look, I went to El Dorado Park on Saturday morning to meet some, activists and people who are joining the campaign and so on. And I was quite pleasantly surprised at how, the community has taken up the duty to clean up its own environment. There used to be an illegal dump site, and they've built walls along, various houses, and they're doing street art, and it's clean. There's benches now. Young people can, sit and be in community with one another there, and see the history of the country told from colonial times to post 1994, in terms of the democratic governments that have come and the leaders who have led in that democratic dispensation and so on. So I think we need to continuously inspire people about the stories of others. In Kliptown, you've got young people who converted an illegal dump site into a community garden, community farming project. So you've got those instances, and I think we need to just make sure that people are aware of those, but also inspire people to demonstrate that civic pride, because it's one thing to be proud of your surroundings, of your place, of your country, and be a patriot, but it's another to live it on the day to day. And I suppose the sentiment is that it's not always going to be that government action precedes everything. In actual fact, government action must come and overlay on what communities are already doing.
I hear what you're saying, but the question here is it sustainable given that we have large youth unemployment in the country, and unless local and provincial governments don't do something about the employment issue, perhaps look at these type of areas where you can employ young people, so that these type of initiatives are sustainable. If we don't have strong partnerships between government and civil society, we'll really go right back to square one, because I think disillusioned youth and people in general will feel, what's the point when I can't find a job? And knowing when they look to the top, the top echelons of government, not only the top echelons, even at local government, that corruption is so rife. Corruption is rife. The fat cats are sitting and eating at the table, and we here are battling to make ends meet. So I'm wondering, what is the plan going forward regarding hijacked buildings, the water mafia, the construction mafia, jobs for pals, and all of those issues. Hence, when I started the interview, I did say to you, you have a major task on your hands.
No, certainly. And I don't downplay the seriousness of what you are suggesting. And that is why part of our core 6 pillars for this campaign actually touches on the issue of jobs and the informal economy, because whilst we talk about people being unemployed and all of this, at the heart of it is that we also just have an economy that is overly formal and overly monopolistic, and so we need to make sure, and that is what is within the city, make sure that the bylaws enable people to be as enterprising as possible, and with whatever scale in the communities and that they are in, and that has all sorts of implications for spatial development, spatial justice, and reform. So yes, the government must be at the forefront of trying to create these environments where people can either self-employ or people then seek to be in gainful employment because of the opportunities that are arising. So part of the structural problem with our unemployment is that you still have a lot of young people who don't finish school, and therefore their chances of being skilled properly continue to dwindle. And so, yes, you do have to make sure that the city has initiatives in partnership, not just only with civil society, I mean, in partnership with your TVET colleges, in partnership. I mean, Johannesburg has two major universities, the Wits University and the University of Johannesburg, and a number of other colleges. And you need to be in partnership with those to ensure that you are skilling young people, you are, directing them to gainful employment, and of course, part of that has to do with growing investor confidence in the city, so that people can invest, and that's why we say we must build a safe and clean Joburg, because once Joburg feels safe, the cost of doing business is going to decrease, and once Joburg is clean, the attraction of investors is going to increase. So we really, must commit to this idea of uh, being solutions driven, but also thinking about the economy of the future of Joburg. We used to, this is called the city of gold, but we know that the gold is no longer there. So, what is going to be the engine that fires the Joburg economy? Those are all the kind of things we are, on the campaign trail to talk to people and stakeholders in ways that help us generate ideas to build that future economy of Joburg.
Okay, let's wrap up by talking coalition politics in Johannesburg. Would you work with other parties, and do you believe that it is a space where different leaders can put their heads together, formulate ideas in making Johannesburg, taking Johannesburg back to being the city of gold?
No, I mean, look, I have no idea. I have no doubt that we will definitely be with a hung municipality in Joburg, and we must be open. In actual fact, the sixth pillar on our pillars is anchoring a stable coalition. Because we understand that this is very important to the residents of Joburg. We've seen a lot of shenanigans over the years where, the coalition politics produce inadequate leaders. And so, yes, we will definitely work with other political parties, but we've developed and we are continuously developing a criteria for terms of engagement. And the heart of it is the kind of leadership that political parties put across. We'll be scrutinizing that because we don't want a coalition that ends up with people where the residents of Joburg are asking you to explain more why these people in your coalition rather than, encourage you to do the work at hand. And that's why we are also open to the idea of a coalition agreement that is, comprehensive and it is published so that the residents of Joburg can also hold us accountable to the things that we say we will do.
Okay, someone's just asking a question, and they wanting to know, the listener wants to know, what's the plan going forward regarding hijacked buildings in the CBD? Because that seems to be one of the major problems regarding the filth and the decay of downtown Johannesburg or the CBD. What's the plan on that going forward?
No, absolutely. I mean, this issue of hijacked buildings falls under our pillar on dealing with illegality. There is no place for people to hijack buildings. And one of the things that we intend to do is to work in coordination with the state security agency because you need a lot of intelligence. I mean, we talk about hijacked buildings, but we've actually never seen anybody being arrested and prosecuted for hijacking a building. And I think that's an important starting point. The second point is to, of course, there are different ownership regimes of those hijacked buildings. Some of the buildings are city buildings. Some of the buildings are privately owned. And so, one of the things that we intend to do in this campaign is to engage civil society that works in that space to say what is the balancing act between sustaining the rights of those who occupy, who are also victims of the hijackers, but also dealing with the criminality that comes with hijacked buildings. And I mean, some interesting ideas have been emerging in terms of some of the buildings are still salvageable. You can, refurbish them whilst you don't move people out of the building. But some of the buildings are in an absolute state of decay, and they may well need to be demolished, and you do developments afresh in partnership with the private sector. But it must be in a way that doesn't displace people. It must be because the people who occupy those buildings, and actually in some of those buildings, majority South African, are victims of the criminal syndicates that are hijacking those buildings, because they get to be extorted and asked to pay, high sums of money as rent, and then those people offer no services to them, simply just sustaining an illegal infrastructure. So there is a lot that needs to be done around those hijacked buildings. They have to be reclaimed. Some of them will have to be expropriated from private landlords into the city books, and then the city must look after them as assets that are available to the city.
Lukhona Mnguni, the Rise Mzansi Johannesburg mayoral candidate and former political analyst, thank you indeed for talking with us this morning, and good luck. We'll be watching this space very, very closely. You go well.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
And you. It is exactly 8:33 a.m. This is News and Views on Salam Media.